to another episode of Backyard Builds. This week on Backyard Builds, I'm going to do the rear brake line, going to try and put the front end in, and then we can start pulling some stuff out to send to powder. We can weld the diff up and send it off to powder as well, and then we can start our final assembly to get this off the rotisserie. So, first up, we're going to do the brake line. So, I'm going to run it through the tube straightener first and go out to the car and see how close we can follow that fuel line that we made last week. So, let's get to it. I've already straightened the tube because I showed you that last week, how to do that. I've cut to length. The brake line's a little bit harder to do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use our deburring tool, both ends, just to give that a bit of a quick clean up before we put it into our flare tool. So this is a really good flare tool. So we come a little bit past, put our top mandrel on, push them back, arm over, lock the arm in. Oh, didn't even get it. Lock the arm in. Don't tighten that all the way down. What we're going to do is we're going to use Operation Zero. So what it does is it flushes the end of the tube and the dies all the way back hard. So now we're good to go. We're going to go around to Operation 1 on 3/16. So there's a couple of types of flares, and for that master cylinder I found that we don't actually need olives. We need to create a ball flare. So this is a ball flare here. So it just looks like a little ball with a miter on the end. So that's Operation 1. So if we were to bring it around to Operation 2 now, and our 3/16, and pull that through, undo everything, we have created what we call a double flare. So it's a tube on the inside and our 45-degree seat. So that can now go into our proportioning block because we've already got a nut on the other end, and we can start to bend and tweak it around where it needs to go. Brake line's done. I just went ahead and did it. It wasn't too much to show you. It was just bending brake line tube. So here it is. So we start in our proportioning valve, follow that splash pan down through a rubber grommet. I'm trying to get it a little bit centered in there. Do another floating clip. We'll probably do a little bit of a redesign and make a couple a little bit longer so they can be run in this style. So as we go along, let's keep the same distance. Again, I modified one just to suit there, but yeah, a redesign with maybe just a center bolt, because there's more than 6mm clearance in there, or even if we went down to an M4, it's just a holding bracket. Follows it up, and boom, that's where we're going to finish it. So I need to put the diff back in to, oh, there's a cow track on my knee. I need to put the diff back in to work out where the flexi hose is going to go from. But the reason for buying such a small pipe cutter is tight spots like this. So we can actually use this pipe cutter in situ on the car without having to take everything back out, which is quite cool. And we're done. So that will get probably a 90 down into a bracket about here, and then the flexi runs from there to the diff because we need that movement for up and down. So that's that. I'll swing the diff back in now, and I might actually have a look at this fuel sender while we're here. I managed to find one, so we'll see if it goes in. 9 inches back in for hopefully the last time. So what I wanted to check was clearance around this fuel pump sender, which we have plenty. We'll probably just put a cap on this in case anyone does actually want to take this car back to stock, which I'm not sure why. But next job is finish the tank out. So there's obviously that hose to remake, but I'll probably do that once it comes back from powder coat. The other job is the pump actually has a bypass on it. So that means we don't have to run a return out of the reg, but we need to actually pump that back into the tank. So what we've got, 2 more stainless fittings. I'm going to weld them up the top there. Why 2? Because this hose is the filler breather, or the tank breather, and to be honest, I don't like the idea of trying to push this hose back through that rubber grommet again. I can just see it being a leak, or the need for a heap of like Celastic, to be honest. So probably just run a AN fitting or a bulkhead fitting back up through the floor here somewhere, or up through that rubber grommet with the tube, and then run it up to where it needs to go. But for now, we can just cap it if we need. So I'm probably going to make the line before I put the fittings in, just so I can get it to where it needs to be. My thoughts are 90 off, down to here, hard line, and then we can put our clamps in the floor with our hard line. Bulkhead fitting, flexi, happy days, because the tank shouldn't move simultaneously to the car. So as most of the time with modifying cars, not every idea works. So by having both fittings up there, by the times I got a 90 down here on the pump, it wasn't great. So what we've done, or what I've done, is we've actually changed where we're going to put it. So if we come down into here, I have gone flexi, 90, 90 into the tank. We need to have that dimension, or that swivel, by having both 90 swivel to compensate for the angle that hose is going to come out at. So what I've done is I've marked my vertical, I've marked my horizontal. When we take it out of the car, I'll extend those lines, center pop it, drill it, and then weld that fitting in there, and I'll put that one up there where we originally intended to put it. Let's drop the tank out again. First piece ready for powder. So I did a quick leak test on those new fittings, put a cap on one. Probably get another cap tomorrow before we drop it off the powder coaters, just so we can cap them off so it doesn't have to tape them up. But moving on to the next job, I'd like to try and drop the diff off tomorrow as well. So that means welding it out and fabricating it, or finishing fabricating it. Take this out as well. Item number 2 for powder, and go with it. So we've made the brake line to there. What we now need is the flexi. So I still have the old diff. I actually went and pulled the block out of it. Quite a cool little design by Chrysler actually. So it actually has the breather as the fitting. So if we put it about there, that hose will reach up to there. We can make a little bracket now, which will also get powder coated, be able to finish that line off and get it sorted. So let's do that now. Just like the weather changing, plans have to change. It's actually just started raining. So, got our little brake line bracket made up. I marked out on the diff where the block needs to go. That hose is pretty good length. Probably just double check it once everything's together. 2 nutserts, factory clamp, and we'll finish this line off later when it's not raining. But now all the suspension comes out. The rear slider brackets go to paint, front hanger brackets go to powder, and I'm going to try and weld out that diff this afternoon. So things we need to do to it: drill and tap for the breather, and also we need to drill a hole for a drain plug in the bottom of it. Jig it back up, double check everything, weld it off, make sure it's straight, and then send it off to paint. So I'm going to bust out and try and get everything off before it gets too much heavier, and get it squared away to go tomorrow. Let's try this for a 3rd time. So
It is still raining. I managed to get everything out of the back of the wagon before it got too heavy. So what I've gone ahead and done is we've put the 9-inch back in the jig, and we're actually going to weld it up for the final time, so we can then get it powder coated as well, hopefully tomorrow. Probably like a 2-week turnaround on powder, but we'll drop everything off there tomorrow, so we can get it all back. Because I also have all of this stuff here to go back in, which is all VJ front end. Thank you to Dave Cooper. So he's actually on YouTube, so if you like some Valiant content, Coop's Cars, go and check him out. He put all that together for me. So we've jigged the 9-inch up. I'll explain the jig for those who haven't seen it before. So it's a bit of PFC with some verticals that we've made up. Piece of M30 odd rod that goes all the way through the center. A shitty old third member that we had, picked up at a swap meet. And in there, the rod actually goes all the way through the caps. So they actually have a machined cap that the rod slips through. So if that rod comes out straight or an easy, then the diff's pretty straight and should be pretty good. So, the great debate, to MIG weld or to TIG weld. I love TIG welding, I love the look of it. So what I've gone through and done is, I've just done a test pass. To me that looks pretty good, it's pretty strong. Taken most of the shoulder out with it. That weld prep's really nice, so hot amps, like 145 amp. And we'll go through and we'll weld it out. So we're going to do one whole end, one whole move around, and keep our weld heat going around the tube, so it should keep it pretty straight. Leave it in the jig to cool overnight, and then pull it out in the morning. So I'll weld it out, and we'll look at putting a plug in and the breather. I'll get to it. End up running a combination of both TIG and MIG. So as you can see, bearing ends all TIG'd in. MIG'd in housing ends. Just got a little stitch on the inside as well. Both look pretty good. Ends and shoulders all welded in. Starting to cool down a little bit now. So next job is draining. So we'll just put it in the bottom. The way it's designed, the fastener will never get hit. And it's a fixed head anyway. So let's mark that out. We'll drill it out so it sits flush. Probably looks like about an inch. The reason why we're still drilling this out whilst we're all the same as those fittings in the tank was we can still get the shavings out at this point. So let's do that. Then the breather we might do today, or I might just send it to powder. I can drill and tab it after it's powder coated. So either. Let's put this in. Unfortunately, the plug diameter was bigger than the step drill that I had. Luckily we picked that up early, and what we used was just a hole saw. So actually quite a nice tight fit in there. A little bit of a gap through the pressing, but we'll fill that up. So now we'll TIG it in. It's pretty well cooled down now. I'll probably leave it overnight just to be sure, but if that bar comes out, we can take it to powder coat. If the bar doesn't come out and I've got to cut it out, then we better not take it to powder coat. Pretty simple. It's as easy as that. Pretty confident it's going to come out though. Just made a measurement from each pad to each end, and we're exactly the same left to right, so it does seem straight. The only way would be in that direction. So let's weld this in, get it ready to pull out and get it good. Got that plug all TIG'd in, come up really nice. Really happy with how the diff looks. I'll let it cool down overnight in the jig, pull it out in the morning, see how straight it is, and get it coated. So that's probably going to be the end of the wagon for a couple of weeks. We've got something else planned, so stay tuned next week, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram. Thanks for watching. See you next week.